A winning culture sounds like one of those vague platitudes that professional athletes regurgitate when asked to explain team success. But the manner in which the Chiefs organization, and more specifically head coach Andy Reid, rebuilt a struggling franchise to win a Super Bowl was absolutely remarkable. And I mean, even this year too, when he had to reinvent the team's identity again after 2 years of strife to win back-to-back titles, is nothing short of genius. And in today's video, we're going to take a deep dive into how the Hunt family turned things around in Kansas City and how they formed one of the greatest dynasties in the NFL and how we watched it fall this year. Now, a crucial aspect of the organization that has allowed for such consistency and production across the board has been between Andy Reid and current GM Brett Veach. However, the state of the head coach-GM relationship wasn't always a priority in Kansas City, and the organization only learned of its importance the hard way. You see, before Andy Reid did arrive, the Kansas City Chiefs kind of had a merry-go-round of different head coaches come through the building. And not only that, but each of those head coaches had serious run-ins with the then GM and then Scott Pioli. This dysfunction even seeped into the locker room, where a talented core of players routinely failed to achieve any form of team success. I mean, for reference, even the 3 head coaches of the Chiefs who preceded Andy Reid left their post with a losing record at the time too. The Hunt family, who owned the franchise, diagnosed that disconnect as the key reason for the lack of success on the field and were convinced that a fresh start would be the solution.
A week ago today, when I began the search for our next head coach, I outlined a specific set of criteria that I believe best described the ideal candidate for our job. I knew I wanted a proven leader who had built a successful program. I knew I was looking for an effective communicator and teacher, and someone with a high football IQ and a strong work ethic. Finally, and most importantly, I knew I wanted a man of integrity who would hold himself and those around him accountable to get the job done. I'm very excited to begin this new chapter in Chiefs history today by welcoming the new head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid.
When Andy Reid took over the head coaching job in KC, he did so on the condition that he had a majority say in the roster composition, which went a long way in reducing the friction between the front office and the coaching staff. And while uniting people behind controversial decisions has always kind of been what Andy Reid has been about and always been able to do it, it also helped that when he was hired the same day, they fired the then GM and brought in somebody that they thought would blend better with Andy Reid at the time.
Chiefs make sweeping changes as they attempt to move on from the worst season in franchise history.
And today they introduced new general manager John Dorsey.
He did make a promise to the fans here. He says he wants to be consistently competitive, says we're here to win. He's going to do everything within his God-given ability to field a competitive football team as good as any team in the NFL.
The Reid-Dorsey partnership was a fruitful one. They made a statement with their 2013 first overall pick, selecting offensive tackle Eric Fisher in a draft where they also picked a troubled tight end prospect from Cincinnati.
With the 63rd pick in the 2013 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Travis Kelce.
Philosophically devoted to building in the draft and not free agency, they weren't rushing headfirst into prospects just because they were there and were instead calculated in their evaluations. They also traded for a quarterback in Alex Smith with their second-round pick, experimenting with ways of balancing the roster for success. 4 years after that trade for Alex Smith, though, they would take a risk on a first-rounder.
The Kansas City Chiefs no longer have a first-round pick. Wow. They just traded it along with the 91st overall pick to move up 17 spots.
10th pick in the 2017 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Patrick Mahomes, the second quarterback.
The team's explosive offense was never in doubt with Mahomes under center, but there was a clear need to strengthen the other side of the ball.
I got a text from Andy that just said, "Are you still a free agent?" with an emoji smile on it.
Just made it officially official. Steve Spagnuolo is the new defensive coordinator of the Chiefs.
Some shrewd business in the 2019 offseason saw Tyrann Mathieu join in free agency and Frank Clark arrive via trade, alongside a solid rookie campaign from safety Juwan Thornhill, proving decisive in yet another deep postseason run. And at the second time of asking 16 years after a crushing loss to the Patriots in Super Bowl 39, Andy Reid had reached the peak of football greatness, beating out the 49ers in dramatic fashion for his first Lombardi and for the Chiefs' first Super Bowl in half a century. And I mean, after giving Kansas City its first taste of Super Bowl glory, KC came back for the 2020 season hungry for more. Explosive rookie campaigns from Clyde Edwards-Helaire and L'Jarius Sneed helped with cap space and were important cogs in the Chiefs machine that went 14-2 undefeated in road games. Dramatic January wins saw them through their second consecutive Super Bowl appearance with the chance to establish themselves as a dynasty of the 2020s, heading into the matchup as favorites over the Brady-led Bucs. But similar to what we just witnessed in Super Bowl 59, big O-line injuries caught up with the defending champs, which made Mahomes the most pressured quarterback of all time in a Super Bowl, resulting in just 9 points scored against the Bucs. The defeat was just disappointing. The manner in which it had happened was downright embarrassing, not at all reflecting the type of season the Chiefs had put together. And in that 2021 offseason, the Andy Reid and pretty much just the entire front office knew that they had to focus on bulking up the trenches if they wanted to be successful. They traded for Pro Bowl tackle Orlando Brown Jr., as well as drafting 2 offensive linemen for the future in Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. Linebacker Nick Bolton out of Missouri was an instant impact player, leading the team in tackles for 2021. And I mean, honestly, despite them keeping some of their most important players on the field, when they were on the field, they had a slump of a season. And honestly, I mean, you could kind of boil this down to just Mahomes having one of the worst seasons of his career in 2021. And as crazy as it sounds too, even some people asking for him to be removed as the starter. That's the thing though, is he wasn't the only one at fault though. Many of his offensive weapons weren't firing, not to mention the defense conceding 163 points in just 5 games for a 2-3 start to the year. Of course, as we all do know, they finally did get their act together, finishing the season 12-5, but after coming out on top of the infamous 13-second game against Buffalo, KC hosted the 4-seed Bengals in the AFC Championship game. And I mean, after flying out to a 21-3 lead, the offense found themselves in an all too familiar rut during the second half. The Bengals came back to lead 24-21, shutting out the KC offense apart from a last-second field goal to send the game into overtime. But with the first possession, Mahomes tossed his second pick of the day to Cincinnati's defense, and the game was shortly over after there. Like, I mean, just 2 years after being on the precipice of becoming a dynasty, KC was now questioning their identity as a football team. I mean, after taking that loss in the AFC Championship game too, the fan base would be plunged into more dismay right after though.
We got some breaking news here on NFL Network. It's not a quarterback trade, but can I interest you in a Tyreek Hill trade?
Tyreek Hill is getting traded to the Miami Dolphins. The return is a first-round pick and more, while Hill will get a contract extension that puts him among the highest-paid wide receivers in the NFL.
Thinking about the Tyreek Hill move today, I wonder if we'll be talking about the what-if of the Chiefs dynasty.
Reid was very open about his admiration for Tyreek as a player, but he and Veach knew that matching Miami's 4-year, $120 million extension offer would chew up too much of the precious cap space. This trade had given them a second first-round pick in the 2023 draft, which was incredible value in comparison to what Brett Veach was used to. And I mean, like, not having a first-round pick to use in 3 of his first 4 drafts as general manager, the pressure was on to make these ones count. They used the 29th overall pick for Miami to trade up to 21st and select a certain cornerback that has made a huge impact on this defense.
With the 21st pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Trent McDuffie, defensive back, Washington.
Shortly after, while they spent the 30th pick on George Karlaftis to strengthen their defensive front, Sky Moore and Brian Cook came in the second round, while Isaiah Pacheco arrived in the 7th for an insane value pick. And I mean, truthfully, looking back at this draft too, Brett Veach has attributed the payoff from these picks as a big part into why they were in the position to repeat and even three-peat in 2025. But as we go back to 2022, Juju Smith-Schuster and MVS came in free agency to try and fill the hill-shaped hole in the offense. And after letting Tyrann Mathieu walk in free agency in 2023, the Chiefs now had a dilemma of basically, did they want to pay players that they already had success with in guys like Chris Jones and other guys like that, or did they want to back themselves and basically hope that they were going to draft well and get good free agents going into the new season? And I mean, yes, this is a good problem to have, but they would end up deciding the later option of the two. Now, in a season that could have been the turning point for all the wrong reasons, the new look Chiefs came to play. No wobbles from a peak Patrick Mahomes saw the face of the franchise win his second MVP award. Travis Kelce was reliable as ever, restored to his rightful place as the team's top receiver, while Isaiah Pacheco had a breakout season on the ground, giving the Chiefs offense a dynamic part that many had feared had lost it in the Tyreek Hill trade. The defense was just as imperious too, with rookies George Karlaftis and Trent McDuffie adjusting to the next level seamlessly. Veteran Chris Jones enjoyed a career-best season, earning himself a podium finish for Defensive Player of the Year in the process, and once again, all of this was the fruit of their incredible hit rate in the draft, a testament to the Reed-Veach partnership. And I mean, despite all of the fresh blood on this roster, they appeared more composed in the postseason than the 2021 team, handling stiff opposition from the Jaguars and Bengals, entering the fourth quarter of both games with the lead to earn a shot at redemption in Super Bowl 57 against the Eagles. A Super Bowl matchup against his former employers in the Philadelphia Eagles meant that there was no denying that this was an Andy Reid legacy match. The team that he had built on the banks of the Missouri with the help of a handful of his ex-colleagues from Philly and the opportunity to march down to Arizona and earn the Dynasty label after their best season to date. That was the thing though, as we all know, Philly wouldn't go down easy though, as Jalen Hurts put up his best performance of the season, with the only blemish being a fumble recovered by the ever oh so underrated Nick Bolton in return for a touchdown. Mahomes shone for this Chiefs offense and won by a narrow 38-35 scoreline. The new approach adopted by the front office had worked, validating their dedication to talent evaluation and acquisition. The Chiefs had a winning formula. They had come back stronger from the loss of two of the league's best wideouts and safeties, as well as a plethora of doubt around their ability to replicate their 2020 success. It became pretty much undeniable that Reid had built a strong culture in KC, one that his star players had bought into and turned infectious around the club. But the 2023 offseason would bring a plethora of new problems they had to deal with. And yet again, not only that, but the offense seemed like it needed another serious revamp if they wanted to contend again. Kansas City went into the draft and picked wide receiver Rashee Rice out of SMU with their second-round pick and offensive tackle Wani Morris from Oklahoma with their third. On the surface, the decision to ask Mahomes to do more with less now too, considering the ridiculous 2022 season he had just put up, wasn't completely out of place, especially when the defense could have taken more of the burden off. That was until, well, the front office had to handle a very high-stakes contract with a certain player that they needed to re-sign.
We'll start with the champs, though, as Chris Jones remains absent from training camp while looking for a new deal. Someone tweeted him about when he's going to show up. He says week 8. Okay, that'll be a hefty tab, I should say, from Arrowhead Live, to which Chris Jones responds, I can afford...
Jones hinted he might hold out. He tweeted, or I won't play. Le'Veon Bell told me about this.
They finally did strike an agreement on a one-year deal after a Week 1 loss to Detroit, ready to lead the defense through another season as its backbone. And turned out also that Kansas City desperately needed Chris Jones to show up because their offense wasn't even great. Their offense was like middle of the pack, just like mediocre that year. Like, I mean, aside from a Week 3 beatdown of the Bears, the Chiefs offense never scored more than 31 points. They found the end zone on 54% of their trips to their opponent's red zone, a staggering 14% less than they did in 2022. I mean, at least Rashee Rice did show out in his rookie season, finishing with 938 receiving yards, but a midseason trade to get McCole Hardman back from the Jets implied a desperation unbecoming of this notoriously measured KC front office. Luckily for them though, an 11-6 record won them the division for the 8th time in a row, but it was also Mahomes' worst win tally as a starter in his career. But as most dynasties do, they came to life in the postseason.
High-powered Miami Dolphins offense, and it's a new identity in Kansas City. They're embracing it, and they're going to the next round.
Will mean victory for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Great job, great job.
Yes, sir. An amazing divisional playoff victory.
Scantling saving the best for last.
MVS has made some MVP plays. It looks like the Chiefs are going to be heading to Las Vegas. No timeouts left for the Ravens.
Play action fake.
Right side throw, touchdown! Kansas City!
And after coming back from a deficit of 10 or more points to win a Super Bowl for the third time under Andy Reid, courtesy of an overtime touchdown from the prodigal son, Mecole Hardman, the Chiefs had made history once again, cementing themselves as the team of the 2020s. Era defining in the truest sense of the word, this incredible dynasty had won their second straight with one of their weaker rosters built around the cornerstones of the franchise and young, hungry talent. Now, coming into the 2024 season, though, they needed to resolve their offensive shortcomings, so they did so with the addition of free agent Hollywood Brown on a one-year deal, bringing back Juju Smith-Schuster back to the fold, and spending their first-round pick on Xavier Worthy out of Texas, whose record-setting 40 time made him an electrifying vertical threat. Meanwhile, Kelsey and Chris Jones signed major extensions as Mahomes restructured his contract, not to mention some of the unsung heroes such as Creed Humphrey and Drew Tanquil signing into important deals as well. Injuries quickly derailed the Chiefs' offensive renaissance of 2024, though, with Hollywood Brown out for most of the year before he even suited up, just for Sky Moore and Rashee Rice to suffer season-ending injuries by the end of October. It got even worse when Isaiah Pacheco headed to the IR for a fractured fibula in week 2, and being forced to look at free agency in the trade block, Veach and Reed turned to a familiar face in Kareem Hunt to give them the option at running back before trading for DeAndre Hopkins in exchange for a conditional 4th-round pick. On the bright side, though, the ironclad defense was able to carry Kansas City to a 15-2 regular season record, even though losing L'Jarius Sneed in the offseason couldn't stop them. A sharp midseason adjustment from the front office kept the team in business, helping them clinch the AFC 1 seed. Even after squeaking their way through the playoffs, even less convincingly than in 2023, the Chiefs became the first repeat Super Bowl champions to ever make it back to the big game for a legitimate chance at a three-peat. And while the Super Bowl 59 rematch against Philadelphia did have a chance to be a defining game for both organizations, we do know who won, with Philadelphia absolutely stomping on the Chiefs and ending this dynasty in its tracks. With a win, the Chiefs had a chance to be the greatest NFL dynasty of all time, and it's the fact that they've even made it to this point as a testament to Andy Reid's brilliance, but Philadelphia had other thoughts. Philly absolutely exposed them throughout the game, showing how much this offensive line needs work, and even Andy Reid's brilliance couldn't keep them from losing this game. Nonetheless, though, if we look at Andy Reid, from helping quell some of the franchise's cultural issues early on, to surrounding himself with the just talent evaluators who have helped build some of the strongest rosters the league has ever seen, Big Red has been through it all. Even getting back to the Super Bowl to even have a chance at the three-peat made him the first team to ever even get that far. And now, without a doubt, has made sure to put his name in the history books for the umpteenth time.